Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take the complexity of modern business, finance, and culture and distill it down to the facts and insights you need to be truly well-informed.
Today, we are undertaking a deep dive into a corporation that, well, it touches nearly every aspect of American life and commerce, yet it maintains this surprisingly dramatic duality in its public image.
Right.
So when you hear the brand Allstate, what immediately comes to mind for you?
Oh, it's two things, almost at the same time. First, you get that ultimate promise of security, that iconic deep voice assuring you you're in good hands.
Buckle asset.
But then, like a split second later, I just picture the exact opposite. I see the chaotic figure Mayhem, the guy who is literally the accident waiting to happen.
Yes.
And it's that cognitive dissonance, that tension between absolute protection and guaranteed disaster
Yeah.
that really defines them.
And that duality between the reassuring good hands and the calculating chaos of mayhem is exactly the core tension we're going to unravel today. Our mission is to go far beyond the catchy TV spots to examine the full history of the Allstate Corporation. We'll trace its origins, understand its massive corporate scale, and importantly, analyze the intense criticism it has faced regarding its claims practices.
The very practices that are supposed to kick in when mayhem actually strikes.
Exactly. We are looking at a company that is nearly a century old. It evolved from, of all things, a simple department store subsidiary into an independent S&P 500 powerhouse.
Before we dive into its really wild origin story, I think we need to ground ourselves in the sheer magnitude of this enterprise. Because this isn't just an insurance company, it's a foundational financial force.
That's absolutely right. You have to understand the scale. Based on 2024 data, Allstate recorded an astounding U.S. $64.11 billion in revenue.
$64 billion.
To put that in perspective, that's roughly the annual GDP of a mid-sized nation. It just confirms its foundational role in the U.S. financial infrastructure.
That is immense. And the assets supporting that revenue, what are we talking about?
Total assets stood at U.S. $111.6 billion in 2024, with total equity hovering around $21.44 billion. The company maintains an expansive, structured global operation with approximately 55,000 employees.
And they're headquartered near Chicago, right?
That's right, in the Glenview-Northbrook area of Illinois. It's traded on the NYSE, and it is a pillar of the system. And this magnitude, this sheer size, is what underscores why their seemingly random origin story, rooted in a consumer contest, feels so jarringly humble.
Okay, let's unpack this history, because the starting point is truly one of the most unexpected twists in corporate history. If you ask most people, they would assume Allstate started with some, insurance magnate drawing up a business plan.
Not even close.
But the name Allstate didn't start with insurance at all.
No. It's a quintessential piece of Americana, born from the massive retail empire of Sears, Roebuck & Co. The name originated from a national contest held by Sears way back in 1925.
A contest.
A huge one. Sears was planning to launch a new private label brand of car tires, and they needed a name that would resonate nationally.
Tires. The initial branding was literally about the rubber meeting the road, not the financial protection against a wreck.
Precisely. And this was not a quiet, internal memo contest. It was a massive public spectacle, really characteristic of Sears' cultural dominance in the 1920s.
So how big are we talking?
The contest drew an astonishing 2,253,746 name submissions.
Wow. Over 2 million.
From nearly 1 million participants, 937,886 to be exact.
That sheer volume tells you everything you need to know about the cultural footprint of the Sears catalog at that time. I mean, people truly felt connected to and invested in that brand ecosystem.
They absolutely were. It was the Amazon of its day. And the winner, a gentleman named Hans Simonson from Bismarck, North Dakota, received a $5,000 cash prize.
$5,000 in 1925 was a fortune.
It was a huge sum of money. He submitted a list of 31 names, and Allstate was the one they picked. So the Allstate trademark was officially registered in 1927, and the tires debuted in the spring 1927 Sears catalog. For the first 4 years of its existence, Allstate was purely a brand name for automotive parts.
So if the brand was already established for auto parts, how did they take that leap from selling physical goods to selling, intangible liability protection?
The idea came from outside the immediate Sears hierarchy. In 1931, an insurance broker named Carl L. Odell proposed the concept to his neighbor.
His neighbor?
His neighbor, Robert E. Wood, who just happened to be the vice president of Sears. Odell's pitch was simple: sell auto insurance via direct mail.
Selling insurance like merchandise in a catalog. That is truly revolutionary for the early 1930s, right?
Hmm.
The traditional model relied entirely on commissioned agents and, well, personal relationships.
It was a profoundly disruptive strategy. It aligned perfectly with Sears' whole philosophy,
Yeah.
using the immense reach of the catalog and direct sales to cut out the middlemen and reduce costs for the consumer.
So they just took the tire name and ran with it.
They did. Allstate Insurance Company was officially founded on April 17, 1931, borrowing the already established name and selling auto insurance with the objective of treating insurance not as a service but as merchandise.
That move inherently challenged the entire existing structure of the insurance industry. They were disrupting the distribution channel from day one.
And they quickly realized that while the direct mail model was efficient, a physical presence provided crucial customer trust and visibility. So by 1933, they had a guy named Richard E. Roscom selling insurance at a small booth in the Sears Pavilion at the Century of Progress World's Fair in Chicago.
A booth at the World's Fair.
And that booth was so successful that it led to the first permanent sales office opening right inside a Chicago Sears store in 1934. They were literally positioning the insurance counter next to the appliances and the craftsman tools.
That integration of physical retail with this new direct-to-consumer insurance model proved to be, perfectly timed for a huge legislative shift that created massive mandatory market demand.
The timing was absolutely critical. Before the 1940s, auto insurance was far from universal. Only about a quarter of U.S. drivers actually carried auto liability insurance.
Just a quarter. That's hard to imagine today.
But that changed fundamentally starting in 1941. New York State passed a key financial responsibility law requiring drivers to prove they could cover damages or injuries from auto accidents.
And as often happens, once a major state like New York enacts a law like that, it sets a precedent that the rest of the country tends to follow.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That New York law inspired what became known as financial responsibility legislation all across the country. By the mid-1950s, nearly every state had adopted some form of mandatory or quasi-mandatory law requiring drivers to show they were covered.
And this legislative pivot created a gigantic mandatory market for the exact product Allstate was selling through its unique, cost-effective model.
It's the definition of being in the right place at the right time with the right streamlined product.
Now, we touched on it earlier, but we really can't move on without discussing the great historical anomaly, the Allstate automobile. They tried to go completely full circle from selling a tire name to selling the actual vehicle.
They did. The Allstate name was a catch-all brand for a huge range of Sears merchandise, everything from motor scooters and fire extinguishers to car batteries. And for a very brief time, a car.
From 1952 to 1953, right?
For those 2 years, Sears sold an Allstate car, which was essentially a badge-engineered version of the Henry J, a car manufactured by Kaiser Motors.
And what was the outcome of this venture? How did it go?
It was a comprehensive failure, a total flop. The Allstate automobile just did not resonate with consumers. It possibly suffered from the brand confusion of being sold next to clothing and power tools.
I'll take a new sedan and a set of wrenches, please.
Exactly. It was quickly pulled from the market and distribution stopped by the end of 1953. It's a fascinating, if short-lived, case study in corporate overreach.
It provides great perspective, though. They failed at manufacturing the whole car, but they learned the wisdom of focusing on the financial safety net instead.
They learned fast. By the late 1960s, the Allstate brand was largely focused on insurance, tires, and batteries. By the mid-1970s, the brand was almost exclusively synonymous with insurance, which solidified the identity we recognize today.
Okay, so having secured their core product and their distribution model, the next step was to craft a public identity that communicated trust and safety. This leads us directly into Section 2, the evolution of their truly iconic branding.
It does, and this starts with the one phrase that defines them.
You're in good hands.
The slogan, "You're in good hands with Allstate," is perhaps the greatest piece of insurance branding ever conceived. It was created in 1950 by the general sales manager, Davis W. Ellis. And the origin story is really crucial because it gives the brand its emotional gravity.
It wasn't some, corporate brainstorming session in a boardroom, was it?
Far from it. Ellis reportedly coined the phrase to reassure his wife. Their young child was sick, and he was trying to comfort her about the doctor who was caring for the child. He said something like, "Don't worry, the baby is in good hands." That deeply personal, reassuring, almost parental sentiment was instantly recognized as the perfect emotional pitch for an insurance product.
It's about trust at your most vulnerable moment.
That's it. And that simple, relatable humanity explains why the slogan has endured for over 70 years. The visual identity followed suit. giving us that distinctive logo.
The two hands.
Yes, the recognizable cupped hands logo was designed in the 1950s by an employee named Theodore Contirio, and it's a classic story of corporate efficiency. Allstate held an internal contest for the design, offering a $50 prize.
$50.
$50. Contirio won the $50 and created the logo that has since become synonymous with insurance safety globally.
$50 for one of the most recognized corporate images in American history. That has to be the greatest return on investment of all time.
Absolutely. And the slogan's staying power is demonstrated by external validation as well. A major Northwestern University study conducted in the year 2000 ranked "You're in good hands" as the most recognizable corporate slogan in America.
The most recognizable.
A masterpiece of enduring, positive branding.
And this positive image was personified for decades by their original spokesman.
That was Ed Reimers. He was the face and voice of the company for 22 years, starting with their first network television campaign in the late 1950s. He personified that comforting, reliable promise, often making that signature cupped hand gesture. He was the steady anchor of the brand for a generation.
But by the early 2000s, the market was changing dramatically. The industry was consolidating. New digitally focused competitors were emerging. It forced Allstate to shift its strategy. They moved toward emphasizing value over pure tradition.
Exactly. This brings us to the era of Dennis Haysbert and The Stand.
Right.
This shift occurred in 2003. Allstate was seeing its policy growth slow down, and it was largely due to the aggressive rise of low-cost direct competitors like Geico and Progressive.
The ones with the get-go and flow.
Those are the ones. They were disrupting the pricing model. Allstate needed to reposition itself not just as safe, but as superior.
So, Dennis Haysbert, known for his commanding presence and serious acting roles, he was hired to embody that seriousness and confidence. He wasn't selling comfort. He was selling conviction.
That's a great way to put it. The campaign was titled Allstate's Stand. His message was crystal clear. While other companies might offer low prices, Allstate offered superior, comprehensive coverage, a stand for quality against the cut-rate approach.
And he was everywhere.
He became a fixture, appearing in over 250 commercials between 2003 and 2016, just reinforcing that message of quality protection over and over.
So the Haysbert campaign targeted the established, loyal customer base. But the advertising war is only intensified. To compete for younger customers who are far more responsive to edgy, viral marketing, Allstate made its most daring move.
The creation of mayhem.
Mayhem.
This is where we see a masterclass in market segmentation and strategic risk communication. Allstate realized they were fourth in advertising spending, trailing Geico, State Farm, and Progressive. They needed a campaign that was distinctive, highly memorable, and specifically targeted the younger, digitally savvy demographic that the Stand campaign just wasn't reaching.
And they needed a character that could not only be funny, but also visually represent the precise thing they're trying to protect you from.
That's the genius of it. Leo Burnett Worldwide developed the concept. The character, Mayhem, played by actor Dean Winters, was initially pitched internally as Mr. Mayhem.
Mr. Mayhem.
And a Burnett executive made a rather aggressive comparison. He noted that Mayhem should be viewed as comparable to Mr. White from the film Reservoir Dogs.
The Tarantino film. That's a dark comparison for a company selling peace of mind.
Very dark. A chaotic, unpredictable, but compelling figure. But the internal goal was even more direct, signaling a competitive aggression we rarely see in public-facing corporate statements.
What did they say?
The quote from the Burnett executive was memorable. "We wanted to kick Flo's ass."
Wow.
Flo, of course, being Progressive Insurance's wildly successful, if, kind of saccharine character. Allstate wanted to leverage chaos to outsell cheerfulness. And Mayhem was launched in April 2010.
And the formula for Mayhem's commercials is brilliant in how it quickly communicates the stakes.
It's a perfect structure for injecting FUD fear, uncertainty, and doubt into the consumer base. Mayhem appears, usually portraying a very specific, mundane, yet highly destructive risk.
Like a squirrel chewing wires or a teenage driver on a phone.
Or, as we noted, a portable grill loaded into a car before being fully extinguished, which then leads to an explosion. He causes the chaos, he hints at the financial devastation, and then delivers the punchline.
That your cut rate policy won't cover the specific damage he just personified.
Correct. The entire premise is a warning to you, the consumer. He ends by advising viewers to check their policies to be better protected from mayhem, like me. And importantly, the character's injuries, the bandages, the black eyes, They carry over from commercial to commercial.
Right, which reinforces the consistent danger he represents
Yeah.
and adds this layer of darkly comic continuity.
It was so effective. The campaign garnered around 80 industry awards within the first year. By mid-2011, Mayhem was the third most recognized insurance advertising character, right behind the Geico Gecko and Flo.
But there was an issue at first, wasn't there? With people connecting into the brand.
Where there was a gap, yeah. While the Gecko and Flo were linked to their companies over 90% of the time, initial studies showed that only 41% of people could correctly link Mayhem back to Allstate.
But the sheer attention-grabbing nature of the campaign ensured that percentage quickly rose. It achieved exactly what Allstate needed: brand cut-through and relevance with a younger demographic.
It also showed their strategic flexibility. They didn't discard Good Hands or the serious stand of Haysbert. They layered Mayhem right on top of it. They even tested variations.
I remember that, the New Year's resolution thing.
Yeah, a brief 2018 arc where Mayhem tried to promote safety, but that was quickly shelved because his destructive nature proved to be the more effective sales driver. They know their brand of chaos works.
And they understood the need for market localization, specifically for the Hispanic consumer.
Yes, recognizing the size and importance of the Spanish-speaking market, they introduced La Mala Suerte, which translates to bad luck.
Bad Luck, played by Alberto Mateo.
Right. It showed that this character archetype was globally scalable across their target markets.
Okay, moving on from this branding masterclass, let's turn to Section 3. The corporate structure, M&A, and the massive undertaking of separating from Sears to become the financial giant we started this deep dive discussing.
The long relationship with Sears was financially complex, but it really had to end for Allstate to realize its true growth potential. The separation was a multi-stage process. Allstate first went public in 1991.
Okay.
Then, in June 1993, a significant minority, 19.8% of the company, was offered to the public through a stock offering.
But the complete independence, the moment the umbilical cord was fully severed, that happened in the mid-90s.
That was June 1995. Sears spun off its remaining 80% stake. They distributed 350.5 million shares of Allstate stock to Sears stockholders. And crucially, at the time, this was the largest initial public offering, or IPO, to date.
The largest ever at that point.
It was a clear signal that Allstate was no longer a department store division. It was a global financial force in its own right.
So why did Sears choose that moment to divest fully? Why make such a monumental financial move then?
Well, Sears itself was undergoing massive corporate challenges. They were struggling. They needed to streamline their operations and generate cash flow. By spinning off Allstate at peak market valuation, they maximized their return, giving Sears a much-needed financial injection.
And at the same time, it unleashed Allstate to pursue its own aggressive, capital-intensive growth strategy.
Exactly. And once independent, Allstate went shopping. They used that new capital to strategically diversify its portfolio beyond the core auto and homeowners policies that built the brand.
Their acquisition history is, it's really a clear roadmap of their market expansion strategy.
It is. In 1999, they purchased the personal lines division of CNA Financial, which they renamed Encompass Insurance Company. This broadened their traditional agent-based distribution channels and product lines.
Then, around the time the Haysbert Stand campaign was running, the one aimed directly at those low-cost digital competitors, Allstate, made a huge move to catch up in the digital space itself.
The timing is perfect.
Yeah.
In May 2011, Allstate acquired both Assurance, which was a well-known direct online sales channel, and the rate comparison site Answer Financial.
How much did that cost them?
They spent about $1 billion on that package. And this was both a defensive and an offensive move. It ensured they could compete on price and distribution efficiency with the very companies they were fighting in their marketing.
They also expanded their risk profile into non-traditional areas, specifically consumer electronics. That seems pretty far afield from insuring a house or a car.
That's SquareTrade, which they acquired in January 2017 for $1.4 billion. SquareTrade provides consumer electronics and appliance protection plans. You know, the warranties you buy for your phone or your washing machine.
Right.
This was a strategic shift toward recurring revenue and managing different types of high-volume, low-severity risk in the consumer warranty space. It's a different kind of insurance.
And of course, the massive acquisition in 2021.
The National General acquisition. A huge deal. Allstate acquired National General for $4 billion. This closed in January 2021, and it significantly expanded their market reach, particularly in the independent agency distribution channel and certain specialized insurance segments.
So they were effectively buying market share and distribution capacity.
That's what it was. But alongside these large-scale acquisitions, they executed a simultaneous and equally major strategic divestiture in 2021. They shed a core part of their legacy business, life insurance.
Why do that?
It signals a clear move towards simplification and risk management. Allstate completed the sale of its life insurance and annuity businesses throughout 2021. The strategic logic here is about focusing capital and resources on the property and casualty market, things like cars and homes,
Yeah.
which is massive but volatile, while shedding the long-term interest rate-sensitive complexity of managing life insurance.
So a clear move to simplify their risk exposure and focus areas. And all this complexity requires extensive leadership and infrastructure.
The entire system has been steered by Thomas J. Wilson. He has served as chairman, president, and CEO since 2007. So he has overseen most of this aggressive M&A strategy and the successful launch of the Mayhem campaign.
It's a global operation.
A very sophisticated global machine. The company relies on a structured, globally spread infrastructure, including massive technology centers, they call them Allstate Solutions, private limited in places like Bangalore and Pune, India, for software development and business process outsourcing.
On top of their core insurance operations in the UK and Canada.
Right. It's a huge, complex network.
It's a sophisticated global machine. And speaking of technology and software, that brings us right into Section 4, which is extremely recent and highlights both the strategic promise and the immediate corporate peril of their technological adoption.
Yeah.
The AI frontier in early 2025.
This is a story that it reveals a lot about the corporate desire to appear humane, even when utilizing automated systems. In February 2025, Allstate's Chief Information Officer, Zulfi Jivanjay, spoke publicly about their deployment of artificial intelligence.
And they were using it to do what exactly?
To generate customer emails within the crucial claims process.
Okay, so a very sensitive customer interaction point. What was the CIO's stated objective for introducing AI there?
The goal was defined as improving clarity and emotional connection. Jivanjay stated that they were using AI to make the emails less confusing and more understanding, and critically, more empathetic. The AI's function was to take complex, jargon-heavy insurance details and synthesize them into clearer, more approachable language.
So the human claims agent was still in the loop, but the AI was handling the emotional labor of drafting the communication.
Precisely, the CIO noted. The claim agent still looks at them just to make sure they're accurate, but they're not writing them anymore. This was framed as an efficiency boost that simultaneously improved customer service by making the language less frustrating.
It's the strategic promise, right? Using algorithms to efficiently generate the appearance of empathy.
Right. But this is where the conversation gets deeper. Can an algorithm truly be empathetic, or is it just highly efficient at emotional mimicry? And what does it say about the insurance process that they felt AI was necessary to overcome the human agent's inability, or maybe just lack of time, to write clear, kind emails?
It raises an important question about outsourcing emotional labor. When you are going through a claims process, a time of stress, loss, or injury, you want genuine human compassion.
And using AI to draft an empathetic email is a technological solution to a communication problem, but it risks feeling cold or artificial if the underlying corporate posture isn't equally compassionate. It's an efficient output, but is it genuine care? That's the core tension for you, the consumer.
And this discussion, even though it's positioned as a customer service win by the CIO, immediately triggered a dramatic corporate reaction when it hit the press.
The reaction was almost reflexive censorship. After the technology news site Futurism reported on the CIO's comments, a spokesperson from Allstate's media relations team contacted the publication
And demanded they take down the blog post containing those quotes about AI-generated empathy.
A formal demand for retraction of an executive's direct quotes about internal technology usage is an extraordinary corporate communication move. It signals a deep discomfort with the public knowing how the good hands image is being constructed and maintained in the claims process.
So why the immediate sensitivity? They were clearly trying to spin it as a positive customer service development. Why demand silence?
The implication seems pretty clear. While they want the outcome of less confusing, more empathetic emails, they do not want the public to associate that outcome with an impersonal machine. Insurance is built on trust, and transparency about automation, especially automation designed to perform empathy, can quickly erode that trust regardless of efficiency gains.
It highlights that for a company like Allstate, public narrative control is arguably as critical as their financial performance. They want you to believe in the human promise, even if the delivery is algorithmic.
And that deep tension between the promised image and the internal mechanism brings us directly to Section 5, which explores the most significant criticism they have faced. Opponents termed it the transition from good hands to boxing gloves.
This criticism has been sustained and, well, exceptionally damaging to their brand image.
It has. The most severe indictment came in July 2008 when the American Association for Justice, the AAJ, published a report.
What did it say?
It ranked Allstate #1 among the nation's worst insurers.
#1 on the worst list. That is a truly damning ranking. What was the central accusation driving that report?
The AAJ CEO claimed that Allstate, while spending billions promoting its good hands approach, had privately instructed its agents to employ a boxing glove strategy against its policyholders. The central charge was a systematic internal effort to resist, fight, and delay claims rather than settling them fairly and promptly.
So how did Allstate respond to this specific, very serious critique?
An Allstate spokesman immediately and forcefully criticized the report. They called the allegations decade-old recycled allegations that have been shown to be without merit in courts of law. They essentially dismissed the whole thing as biased, using old, unproven claims from plaintiffs' lawyers.
But the allegations were formalized and detailed in the nonfiction book, From Good Hands to Boxing Gloves. And this book dove into the specific strategies allegedly employed to boost profitability by minimizing payouts.
The book, written by authors David Berardinelli, Michael Freeman, and Aaron Deshaw, details strategies allegedly recommended by the elite consulting firm McKinsey & Company.
McKinsey.
Yes. McKinsey, known for redesigning complex business systems for major corporations, was tasked with improving Allstate's profitability.
And what was McKinsey's core recommendation regarding claims?
The core allegation is that McKinsey recommended a claim strategy designed to maximize profitability by fundamentally diminishing the total money paid out to policyholders. The specific, often cited method was to lowball claims.
Can you explain the practical mechanics of lowballing in this context for the listener?
It works on desperation and calculus. The insurer offers an initial settlement that is knowingly and significantly below the claim's actual value. The strategy banks on a critical factor. The customer, who is often already stressed by a wreck or a home loss, will be more likely to quickly accept the reduced settlement simply to avoid a long, exhausting, and financially draining legal battle.
So they trade what they are owed for immediate cash and relief from the stress.
Exactly. And that's where the duality plays out in real time. The company offers the comforting good hands through the initial, albeit inadequate, lowball claim. But if the customer rejects it and pushes back,
The company immediately gets out the boxing gloves, meaning aggressive litigation and refusal to budge.
that is the alleged operational philosophy detailed in the book. It's a mechanism designed to create institutional friction. Now, Allstate, when responding to this in a 2006 Businessweek review, maintained that the allegations were unfounded and unproven.
But despite that corporate denial, were there specific legal or regulatory outcomes that substantiated the need for change in their claims practices?
Yes. The legal outcomes were mixed, but the regulatory pressure was very real. Courts and regulators in several states, notably New York, Pennsylvania, and Washington, forced Allstate to halt or modify certain claims handling practices.
Like what?
For instance, there was particular scrutiny over the use and distribution of a controversial form titled, "Do I Need an Attorney?" which was allegedly handed out to people involved in accidents, potentially discouraging them from getting legal representation.
So regulators recognized a need to intervene and force a change in how they were managing that interaction with the claimant.
Correct. Though it is also crucial to note, as the 2006 Businessweek article mentioned, that 7 court rulings had rejected direct attacks on the claims practices themselves. So the picture is nuanced. Regulatory pressure forced changes in policy, but not all litigation against the companies succeeded in proving systematic fraud.
Okay, a core piece of technology tied directly to this claims controversy and the alleged lowballing strategy was the Colossus software. Let's delve into that.
Colossus is a complex computer program used throughout the insurance industry. It's designed to process claims, especially for soft tissue injuries, and calculate a range of potential settlement values. Berardinelli's book heavily criticized its use, alleging that data inputs could be manipulated to consistently lead to lower payout recommendations.
So if the software is intended to standardize claims, Why did it result in a lawsuit involving 41 states?
The lawsuit, which concluded in 2010, centered on inconsistencies in how Allstate was utilizing the Colossus software across different offices and different types of claims. The result was that Allstate paid a substantial $10 million fine to settle the lawsuit brought by the 41 states.
And what else?
As part of that settlement, Allstate agreed to standardize the protocols for the software's use going forward.
Paying $10 million to settle a multi-state lawsuit is significant. It demonstrates that regulators found the inconsistencies serious enough to warrant intervention and a penalty.
It is indeed a major outcome. However, to maintain that crucial balance, we have to include the contextual statement made at the time by the New York insurance superintendent. While the fine and the agreement were finalized, the superintendent specifically stated that they found no systemic underpayment of bodily injury claims.
That's a critical detail. So they were fined for inconsistent use of the software, but the regulatory body did not officially conclude that the software was systematically used to cheat policyholders across the board.
Exactly. It's a very fine but important distinction.
Beyond these claims handling controversies, Allstate also took highly public and aggressive steps to manage its exposure to environmental risk, particularly in hurricane-prone regions like Florida.
Catastrophe exposure management is now one of the single biggest risks for property and casualty insurers. Following the devastating hurricane seasons of the mid-2000s, Allstate sought to drastically reduce its risk in Florida.
How do they do that?
In 2006, they made a major announcement. They would not be renewing 120,000 existing policies.
120,000. That is a staggering number of policies to drop in a single state. It must have created an immediate and profound housing and insurance crisis.
The public outcry and the political response were instantaneous and intense. Florida Governor Charlie Crist and the Florida cabinet responded aggressively by passing a 90-day emergency order. This order temporarily prevented insurance companies from issuing mass policy non-renewals.
So the government intervened directly in the market to protect homeowners.
It was a real power struggle between a massive corporation trying to shed risk and a government trying to protect its citizens. The crisis forced a regulatory dance. In February 2007, the Florida Insurance Commissioner clarified the order and reached a compromise.
What was the compromise?
Insurance companies could non-renew policies to manage their exposure, but they had to satisfy stringent consumer protection conditions. These included filing new, lower rates with the state and providing customers with 100 days' notice before the non-renewal took effect.
So it allowed Allstate to pursue risk reduction, but it forced them to do so transparently and with benefits to the remaining policyholders.
It shows that even a company of Allstate's financial magnitude cannot simply act unilaterally when its decisions have such broad societal implications. It's a perfect example of the intersection of corporate financial strategy and public policy.
Okay, so we've thoroughly examined the corporate moves, the contrasting branding efforts, and the intense scrutiny of their claims practices. Now, let's pivot to Section 6. Allstate's truly massive sponsorship footprint. This is the mechanism they use to consistently inject that positive, trustworthy, good hands identity back into the public sphere.
Sponsorship is essential for high brand visibility and association with positive community values, and Allstate's presence is vast. Sometimes they literally provide the venue.
Like the Allstate Arena.
The most visible local sponsorship is the Allstate Arena in Rosemont, Illinois, conveniently located near the company's headquarters. It hosts major sports and entertainment events. But their most pervasive and strategically smart sponsorships are in college sports, particularly football.
Right, where they seamlessly connect visibility with philanthropy.
They are deeply entrenched in the college football ecosystem. Allstate sponsors those branded field goal nets, the nets behind the uprights, at over 67 colleges and universities. They also sponsor them during over 20 major college bowl games,
Including the famous Allstate Sugar Bowl.
which they've title sponsored since 2007.
And the genius of that net sponsorship is the good works philanthropic element tied directly to the action on the field.
It's highly effective. It creates this tangible, positive connection. For every field goal and extra point kicked through those sponsored nets, Allstate makes a donation into collegiate general scholarship funds. To date, their total donations through this initiative exceed $2.9 million.
So they get to tie their brand not just to high-profile sports, but to the education and future of students. That's a sophisticated way to link high-energy visibility with a genuine positive impact.
And beyond that specific campaign, they are partners with major conferences and unique historical events. They're a significant partner of the Southeastern Conference, the SEC, sponsoring all 20 of its sports.
And they made a huge splash with the 2010 Allstate Wrigleyville Classic.
The football game between Northwestern and Illinois played in the iconic setting of Wrigley Field. Title sponsorship of that event guaranteed massive national media attention because it was historical. The first collegiate football game at Wrigley Field since 1938.
Sponsoring events with historical cachet reinforces a brand image of stability and heritage.
Exactly. And it's not limited to American football. They also have a significant presence in global football or soccer.
Right. Their market expansion strategy involves leveraging the popularity of soccer in North America.
Since 2007, Allstate has been a key sponsor of the Mexico national team. They further solidified their presence by partnering with Major League Soccer, MLS, and the United States Soccer Federation starting in 2011. This helps reach a broad, diverse audience, including the large Hispanic market they strategically target.
And finally, they've also leveraged the high-octane energy and massive fan base of NASCAR.
They were the title sponsor of the Allstate 400 at the Brickyard from 2005 to 2009. That was the annual NASCAR Sprint Cup Series race held at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which allowed them to tap into a huge demographic dedicated to auto racing, again reinforcing their foundational connection to the automobile.
That brings us to the close of this truly deep dive. We've traced the incredible arc of the Allstate Corporation, and now we need to synthesize these dual realities, the carefully crafted image versus the operational scrutiny.
We have journeyed from a corporate origin rooted in a contest to name a tire line for Sears, watching it evolve into a disruptive force by selling insurance like merchandise. It broke free from the Sears umbrella in the largest IPO of its time, transforming into an independent global financial powerhouse.
And in that journey, it created some of the most enduring and strategically opposed branding in corporate history. On one hand, you have the decades-long reassurance of the good hands. On the other, the calculated chaos of mayhem, designed explicitly to cut through the noise and capture a new generation.
At the same time, its corporate growth strategy has been hyper-aggressive, using M&A to diversify into technology with Assurance and consumer warranties with SquareTrade, while strategically shedding legacy businesses like life insurance to focus entirely on property and casualty risk.
But the central tension we've repeatedly encountered is the gap between the external message and the internal mechanism. The company spends billions promoting the value of superior coverage, Haysbert Stan, yet it has faced immense regulatory and legal scrutiny.
That scrutiny includes being ranked the worst insurer for employing an alleged boxing gloves litigation strategy designed to reduce payouts through deliberate friction and paying a $10 million fine to 41 states over inconsistencies in the use of the claims processing software Colossus.
The entire journey is a portrait of a massive corporation trying to navigate a market that demands both superior financial performance and the outward appearance of unwavering customer trust.
And that leads us back to our final point for reflection. That most recent incident involving the use of AI to generate empathetic customer communication, followed by the extraordinary corporate demand to censor the discussion of that very technology in the press.
It raises an important question for you, the listener, to consider as you navigate the modern insurance landscape. We've seen how Allstate's corporate identity relies on carefully crafted characters and slogans, from the comforting hands of Ed Reimers to Mayhem's calculating destruction, all designed to cut through the competition and project trust.
So when a company is so focused on managing its external image and goes so far as demanding the removal of press quotes about its internal use of algorithms designed to generate empathy in a sensitive claims process, what are we really buying?
How much of a corporation's claimed commitment to emotional care can truly be outsourced to an algorithm before those corporate hands start feeling entirely artificial? Efficient, yes, but ultimately hollow.
The difference between genuine care and the efficient mimicry of care is huge when disaster strikes your life. And that is something worth thinking about as you assess the true value of any promise of protection.
A perfect place to end this deep dive into the business of protection and chaos. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.